You're listening to the practice of a Hoodoo Baptist, my personal journey of root work, faith, and ancestral wisdom. This is where I honor the ones that came before me, share what's been passed down, and walk you through my experiences of being unapologetically aligned, covered by spirit, guided by blood. This episode, it's officially episode 7. Um, The title of this episode is Spiritual Baths, Cleanses, and Everyday Protection. Now, I know initially when I started this podcast, I said that I wasn't necessarily going to center this podcast on talking about spell work, root work, like rituals, a bunch of remedies. Like I wasn't going to necessarily center it on that. But I did say I will mention um, rituals and certain things as far as like when we're talking about protection, we're talking about cleansing just for your everyday living. So yeah, this is the episode where I will, excuse me, this is the episode where I will tap into this. First of all, I want to say, well, let me set the tone. Protection doesn't always look like a jar or a candle, okay? Like I think a lot of people when they think about hoodoo, they're just automatically connected to a certain look. They already have something in their mind of what it's supposed to look like, what it's supposed to what it's supposed to give as far as an aesthetic. But honestly, like that's really not the case. It doesn't have to be the case, for real. Um and again, like protection, when we're talking about protection, it doesn't always look like a jar or a candle. Sometimes it's a bath. Sometimes it's prayer. For me, it's always prayer. Prayer before I leave the house, prayer when I get in the car, okay? Prayer when I'm traveling, when I return, home. Sometimes it's also in a song that can shift the energy in a room. Like music is so powerful. Music saves lives. Music influences us. Music really like can really shift our energy. So sometimes it's in a song. It's really simple. Hoodoo is every day for me. It's my daily. Hoodoo lives in the everyday. From the small, consistent ways that I keep my spirit clean, my space covered, and my energy clear, that's root work. Let's talk about spiritual hygiene. Like, what is spiritual hygiene? It is spiritual protection. Um, when we're talking about, I mean, think about like normal hygiene. You waking up in the morning, doing your physical stretches. Like I believe like stretching in the morning is a form of like hygiene for the body, waking up in the morning. Maybe like saying a prayer. I always thank God, the creator, for waking me up. Always thanking them for waking me up, Lord. Always thanking God for waking me up. Okay. um Also think about like the way and like how we have our routines in the morning. So like people getting up, brushing their teeth, washing their face. Maybe their routine is to just go ahead and take a shower. But think about that, like the spiritual aspects of that. Like just like you wash your body, you wash your spirit. You're doing like certain cleanses to help keep you aligned and less vulnerable to spiritual debris. You know what I'm saying? So that could be having a certain like spiritual bath. When you do take your showers, anointing your body with like anointing oils. I keep Florida water in my bag. I keep Florida water in my purse. I like to spray my hands, rub a little Florida water, sprinkle it a little across my head, especially if I'm going into certain spaces where there's a lot of heavy energy. I think it's super necessary to do that. Okay. So, spiritual hygiene is your spiritual protection. It's necessary for this life. It's necessary. It's a part of my lifestyle. And that's also something that I learned even from folks um, who were in my family who practice, who love the Lord loves them, who are God fearing, God loving people, believers, prayers. And they also practice, had their African indigenous practices, had their hoodoo practices. So, I always saw other elements of spiritual hygiene in the church. Like, for example, wearing all white. The ushers wearing white, not just on last or first Sunday, um, wearing white gloves, just the white cloths, white blankets, wearing something wrapped around your head. Like, all of that is a form of spiritual protection. That's spiritual hygiene, okay? I know some real root workers to this day, real, real practitioners, folks who are in the tradition, African traditional religions, in these traditions that wear white on their heads, even when they do IG lives or even when they do Zoom meetings. Super necessary. Okay. Let's tap into spiritual baths because I did mention spiritual baths. So, like, baths, just like any other regular baths. They're slightly different. Like, it's for cleansing, it's for releasing, it's for resetting. Water is a huge element in the practice. Think of water as like a conductor for spiritual work. Ancestral, it's biblical, it's earthly. Like, water is that girl in this practice. In a lot of practices. Like, it's funny how, like, when folks who are super religious are super judgy about other groups that are also spiritual, but that may not remove themselves from the earth or may use elements of the earth. Like, people make fun of folks who carry herbs or crystals and even water. I have holy water in my house. I carry Florida water in my purse. You know what I'm saying? Like, to me, these are necessary things to have. It's just as important, if not more important, than having my lip gloss in my purse. Okay. um but yeah, I love a good spiritual bath. Like, I might do a little Florida water, some Epsom salt, some herbs like rosemary or basil, some essential oils, if possible, and coconut water is also good to use. Some type of, like a milky kind of texture water. And last but not least, the most important thing, a prayer, a Psalms prayer, some type of spoken prayer. Um, really diving into a prayer, um, especially if I'm doing, like a bath. I think, it's also very possible to do spiritual cleansing, in the shower. Just like make your mix before you get in the shower. Do your regular, bathing, rubbing down in the shower, and then rinse that off, and then put your spiritual mix on you. Rub it all on your body. Super important, very doable. When I'm in my bath or in my shower doing my spiritual cleanse, I pray. I pray even as I prepare my bath. Like, if I'm mixing my bath, with my water and sea salt or Epsom salt or my herbs and oils, whatever I'm mixing, I'm praying on that as I mix it together. I'm praying as I pour. I'm praying as I'm, like, rubbing it all down, like, all over me. The bath itself is a prayer. For real, for real. Okay. Let's get into cleanses. Like, as far as cleansing of your space. So, when we're talking about cleansing a space, like, the main thing, I mean, that I think that's relatable, especially to Black women, Black families. Cleaning up the house, that's a ritual, y'all. Like, Black women, Black people, we clean our house differently than other groups, and that's totally fine. It's super unique. It's nothing like crazy or odd about it. It's just unique. It's just beautiful. And it is an entire like spiritual act of service for yourself and your space. So cleansing your space is super important. It's super important to clean. If you have clutter, if you have a cluttered space, a cluttered house, you're not leaving that much space for something new to come into your life, or something beautiful, for abundance. Like that's what I was taught. So it's super important to cleanse the home. Do floor washes. Floor washes are key for cleansing your space physically and spiritually. Having your rituals for when you are cleansing your house. Like, I know a lot of us, we grew up with mamas, aunties, grandmamas that, would light some candles, burn some incense to shift the energy, especially if they're cleansing the floors with any floor washes, opening up the windows to move that stagnant energy out, playing gospel music, playing some type of spiritual music, playing some Anita Baker, okay? All of this, these are all beautiful aspects. These are all great things to do for cleansing your home, for cleansing your space. Okay, the house has to stay clean spiritually, just like it does physically. Okay, open up the windows. If you're gonna burn your sage, light your candles, smudge a little bit, and have your incense. Open up the windows to get the energy out, to get that old stagnant energy out. Have your floor washes. Mix up some things to make your own floor washes. Like I can put like a couple of options for y'all as far as for certain floor washes in links in the blog, in the blog post for the newsletter. I'll definitely add some options for you, because yeah, you can kind of make up your own things. Like, it doesn't have to be like, there's not a completely wrong way to do it. Of course, like, for us that's real hoodoo with it, if you want to get real deep southern south hoodoo with it, for a cleanse, spiritual cleanse involves beating your walls with some herbs, flowers, some greenery, spraying it down, smudging. Yeah, that's a whole thing. That's a whole nother thing, and that's super real. Especially if you believe like you have like a bad spirit in your house, or a spirit that you want to get out of the house, or bad energy, energy in your space that doesn't feel like yours. It feels like something else, and you want it out. It's possible to get that out, but yeah, that requires for you to do a little more hoodoo, a little more, beating of the walls, if you will. And that's some real, real shit. Everyday protection practices, though, like something I do, I like to anoint myself before I leave the house. Like, have a little anointed oil on me before I leave the house. Yeah, like I said, I keep my Florida water on me. Um, there's a couple other sprays that I have, like small, like personal sprays that I might have that I might spray over my car. Um, my door for sure. I mean, but let's keep it real. Like, discernment is the first line of defense. And I said that a couple episodes back where I talked about discernment, because it's so important. So think of always be on 10. Always have that the front of your mind. Discernment. That's the first line of defense. And setting boundaries. Who do you allow access to you? Who has the access to you? What do you allow? Who do you allow around you in your space? Who has been in your space? If there's somebody that's been in your space and you're not really sure about them, do a cleanse. Cleanse your space. Cleanse your space. Clean up them floors. You know, air out that bad energy. Now, you not tripping. It's real. It's a real thing. You don't have to wait for a crisis to happen in order to practice protection. Like, you should be continuously, excuse me, you should continuously practice protection. You know, Get into the habit of making your own washes, get into the habit of touching herbs and speaking to plants, and praying over your herbs. Build up your routines that keep you spiritually covered. Your peace is worth protection, especially in today's time. Like, my God, we have so much going on in the world. Like, now is the time to get the shit popping when we're talking about protection. Protection work is an act of love. It's an act of love for yourself, your ancestors, and your purpose. Okay? Now is the time. Don't be afraid. Don't feel silly about it. Like, look, these are things your people have been doing for decades, for centuries. Okay, this is your shit. This work is yours. The root work is yours. Protection work is yours. Okay, you are worth it. You are worthy. You are valuable. This is your extra validation. You already got it. Just tap in. Okay, and please, y'all, be careful as y'all are looking up stuff online. Y'all are finding people who say they practice hoodoo, who say they are hoodoo practitioners, um, and people are like posting their spells and rituals and bombs and anointing oils and washes and sprays. Just be careful of like who you're purchasing things from. Have discernment about that. Be careful. Do lots of research. Keep researching. Keep researching. Because to be honest, y'all, I see a lot of people just buying stuff from folks, just from anybody that's selling anything. I'm all about supporting Black owned businesses. I'm all about, like, supporting folks, but really, like, do your research, feel for people before you give them your money. And the other thing I want to say is, a lot of times, like, y'all are out buying things that y'all could be making yourselves. And when you're making something yourself to put on your body, to make for you, like, it's so much more power in that. And a lot of times the remedies, the rituals, the recipes, you already got it. You just got to ask your mama, your grandmama, your great grandmama, your aunties. Like, it's already there. You already have it in your hands. You already have it in your heart. You already have it in your mind. So just tap into that. You don't need to go out and buy anything. You can just make it and do it yourself by looking into more of what our folks did back in the day, like doing that research, you'll be able to learn more about what herbs do, what powers each herb has, really dive into herbalism, dive into, you know, um, the religious and spiritual practices of our people, African traditional religions and African derived religions and spiritual practices, hoodoo included. Tap into that and you will find it. The work will find you. Trust. It will find you. And all of this work, like I said, protection work, is an act of love for yourself, your ancestors, and your purpose. I hope that helps. You've been listening to the practice of a Hoodoo Baptist. This is my altar, my process, my truth, where I honor those who came before me and speak what was once kept in silence, covered by spirit, guided by blood. Until next time, peace.